Hi, Kit Words with you, Flower Duet, and we're working with hydrangea today to show you how to make a beautiful, tall, dome-shaped design that would be perfect for an elegant ballroom. Before we start doing the mechanics of this design, I want to show you the stand that it's going to go on. So you need to know how tall the stand is so you can decide, well, how wide and how tall you want the flower arrangement to be. So these are called, when we do these for events, we call these talls. Basically, that means they're elevated on some kind of stand. And so once you get them up here, they need to come out far enough to make it look balanced, so that it doesn't look like, number one, it's going to make the stand fall over, but number two, that it is kind of in proportion to the stand that it's on. So this is a fairly tall stand, and it's a fairly wide stand. So we want to make sure that our design that's going to be on it is going to be big enough to complement it. I'm going to do this design with just hydrangea, and that's just to give you an idea of how many hydrangea it would take and the type of size and technique that you want to use. Of course, you can add greenery and roses and maybe phalaenopsis orchids after you've done the base of hydrangea. So this is really just giving you an idea of how much hydrangea this will take, and then you can calculate, okay, if I want accents, how many more accents do I need to add after that? When working with hydrangea, whatever color it is, you want to make sure that you remove all the leaves. That's because these leaves drink a lot of water. And even though this is for event work and it only really has to last through the event, you still want to make sure that your florets are going to stay hydrated. The best way to do that is to make sure your leaves are off, because they drink all the water going up to the stem. And we don't need these leaves in the design at all. This is going to be an all white design, a winter white, let's say, or just a nice wedding white. So we don't need any of those leaves anyway. So that's going to be your first step. So you might as well just do that to all your hydrangea ahead of time, so that all you have to do is place them into your design. The next thing you want to do is look through and see if there's any brown bits on hydrangea. If there are, you can just peel them off. If there seems to be a lot of brown, it is probably going to keep getting browner. So sometimes we need to order extra just in case that happens. Sometimes one box might be not so great. So you want to make sure that everything looks good. If you buy these by the box, you need to give yourself like 2 or 3 days for them to hydrate in water, and so that they can turn whiter and fuller, and you can get more bang for your buck, basically. So you're going to need to allow time for conditioning for these flowers. Also, before you start designing, these are considered medium, I think, medium size, but sometimes you'll get some nice full ones, and sometimes you'll get some that are a little bit sparse. So you want to make sure you kind of know, okay, the fuller ones, I'm going to go around the base of my design, and then the smaller ones will go near the top. Now, what are we going to work in? We're going to work in floral foam, and I've already soaked a bunch of bricks here. And if you're doing a smaller version of this, you could use a small design dish. This is a very hard, thick plastic dish that can carry the weight of floral foam and flowers. They make these in larger sizes. I just don't happen to have one in the studio to show you. So this one's kind of on the medium size. I want to discourage you from using a flimsy plastic tray you might get at your local dollar store or your party central place. It's just not, there just isn't enough strength in the plastic to hold all of this. Even if I just put one brick on this, see, it's very bendy. And you can imagine if I had 3 bricks on this and then flowers, it wouldn't hold up. You'd have water spilling everywhere, and that's not good for your event. So you always want to use something that's designed to take the flower weight and the foam weight for your event. This is an Oasis design bowl. It's the large size. It generally holds 2 bricks of foam. I actually needed it to rise up a little higher for this design. So I have 1 brick split in half lengthwise underneath, 2 bricks on top of that, and then a little triangle, like another brick on top, to make sort of a triangle or a pyramid. Now, to keep this in place, I need to make sure, number one, my container is dry, that I'm going to use some waterproof floral tape, and I'm going to make sure that it's gridded onto this design dish so that this tape isn't going anywhere. So when you're working with flowers that are going to be up high like this and maybe sitting on top of something like a design dish, you really need to make sure that that foam is secure, and it needs to be secured with waterproof tape. Some people choose to put the foam on the design dish dry and tape it all dry and then soak it. That does work. We prefer to always soak our foam first and then tape it into place. The key is with waterproof tape, you have to make sure that whatever you're taping to is dry. So if you do have the pre-soaked foam, then, and if I want to have a little bit more security, I can go through, maybe do this low, I should have done this lower layer first. Let's just give you an example of what I could do. Make sure that this is really taped down. This design dish was black, and then we painted it gold for a different event. So you want to make sure that if the design dish is going to be seen, that you kind of try to disguise it as well as you can. These flowers are going to really drape over the side, so I'm really not that concerned about it. Once you have everything taped along that base, then you want to go around with one more layer of tape to make sure that that tape isn't going to go anywhere. You want to try to do this as neatly as possible. I'm a little bit messy on that side. My tape roll is starting to fall apart. Again, this is specific waterproof tape that's made for the flower industry. So you want to make sure that that's what you have. It's kind of like a miniature version of duct tape. Okay, this weighs a ton, and I haven't even put any flowers in it. But we need a lot of foam because we're going to put a lot of flowers in so that we can have the volume that we need to have on top of that stand. I put the design dish back up on the stand to give you an idea of, how tall this really is going to be, and to give you an idea of what we want to do with our flowers. So we want to make sure that this part of the design is covered, but we also want to make sure that your flowers come out far enough to make an impact on the stand. If they're all just right here, it's going to look funny. So your flowers need to come out at least to here, but we need to make sure that we're not going to see any of that underbelly of our design dish. So how do we accomplish that? Well, we have them come out this far, but we also have them kind of coming in at an angle. So they're not angled like this or like this to start. We're going to be putting them into our design dish down like so. For example, so I'm going to cut at an angle using sharp cutters, and I'm just going to show you what I mean by that. So see, that's about a little too far out, but I wanted to give you an idea of what we're going for. So I'm going to pull out that same hole, cut a little bit off, and put it back in the same hole. I'm not going to design this on this high thing. I'm going to show you our technique for designing these types of things. But what this is going to do by having it up here, and I encourage you, if you're going to do something like this, you make sure that you start high so you can make sure that whatever you end up doing after you design it low, that it's going to look balanced once you have it up there. So you need to do this step before you go ahead and start going on your design. Okay, so how we design is we use a riser. So basically it can be an upside down pot or a bucket, maybe a small bucket, but something that's sturdy and heavy enough to handle the weight. Also remember, whatever design dish you choose, you want to make sure that there's a little bit of water reservoir area, because as we start to stick stems in now, the water from the foam is going to push down into the container. And you want to make sure you have enough reservoir to make sure that that container is not going to overflow. So I'm just going to go around the perimeter now, matching how far I came out on these and the angle at the same time. So, and I want to make sure that I don't have any space in between. Now this one's really small, so I'm going to save that for the end. Just use my bigger, fluffier stems for this lower part. So I'm just going to go around, same angle, and speed it up for you. And then when I get to the next layer, I'll slow it down. So our first layer is done. So now we want to come up a layer. And a lot of times our main question is, how far are you going into the foam? We're only going about maybe 2 inches into the foam, because if you go too much farther into the foam, then your stems are going to start running into each other. So this next layer, we're going to come in slightly. So we're not going to come out as far. We're still going in this lower brick layer. And what you want to do is make sure that you don't have any gaps. So I'm just double checking. Make sure there's no gaps. So like so. So you want to make sure, so you're coming up and you want to make sure there's no gaps in between that first layer and then the second layer. So I'm going to keep going around and filling in. So I'm going to speed it up so you can see what I'm doing. So again, I'm just going right above that, making sure there's no gaps. If I can show you that again. So your stems are a little shorter and you're coming up and you're bringing it in closer into the foam. So the first layer was far out and now we're bringing it in a couple inches, 2 or 3 inches in closer to the design, because we're going to create a dome or an umbrella of flowers. Let's see, like so. See how easy it is that now everything is, I already cleaned everything, so all I have to do is cut. And you'll notice I'm cutting and placing. I'm not waiting more than 10 seconds before I put that flower into the foam, and that's because the stem will seal up, especially hydrangeas. You got to make sure that they get into that water source nice and fast. I had to get more flowers, so I'm going to keep going. Still just on my second layer, almost done with the second layer. Yeah, I guess I am done with the second layer. So now I'm going to be going up a little higher and I'm making it rounded. Now remember, this is going to be tall already, so it's not that important once you get up higher, how many flowers you have up here, because that's not where everyone's going to see. They're all going to see the stuff that's going on down here. So it's more important to have that lower layer interesting. So if you are going to start to add accents, when I talked about in the beginning of the class, like roses or orchids, make sure they really come out to the side of your design, because otherwise you're just kind of wasting them on top. The top of the design, no one's really going to see unless you have a drone. Which is actually a good point, is these talls are not really necessarily very good for outdoor venues. A lot of times, especially where we are in California, we're on a lot of mountaintops in Malibu and places where the wind picks up any given notice or with no given notice. And so you really want to avoid any sort of tall designs. Keep those for inside ballrooms. That's the whole purpose of having a tall design, is to bring down the ceiling of a ballroom so it doesn't feel so open. That's why you use the tall designs in a venue. If you have an indoor venue with really high ceilings. An indoor venue with low ceilings, I wouldn't do talls, because then you'll start to feel a little bit confined. So keep the talls for the grand ballroom. And again, you don't have to do, your client doesn't need to have all talls. It's interesting, nice sometimes to have a combination of tall and low designs in the same flowers. It gives a nice, interesting look to the whole room. So as I'm talking, I'm just going up, and I'm almost to the top of the design, and I need to clean some more flowers. clean some more flowers. Hopefully we'll have enough. I think we will. Or I can clean some more. So I'm just stepping up. As I go up the design, I'm bringing my flowers in closer, which means I'm cutting the stems shorter. Remember, we started off with stems about this long. And as you come up into the design, you don't need them to be as long. So, and also the other thing about shorter stems is they drink the water easier. So that's just something to think about no matter what the flowers are. If it's going to be a hot day, you really need to worry about that hydration of your flowers. The shorter the stems are, the easier it is for them to drink the water. So like I said before, this top, you want to make sure you can't see any foam. Of course, we don't want any foam showing, so you really got to cover that up. But again, at the top of the design, no one's going to be up there. So don't worry about making it fancy. Just make sure it's full. Not fancy, but full. So remember, I had these two that were smaller. So let's see if I have any spaces. I'm going to turn around that I need to fill in. I have some space here that's kind of showing. So I'm going to place this one in, feel that gap. Ah, that's better. And then here, some of these are got a gap here, so I got to give it a quick cut. Fill that in there. These sort of gaps are actually where you'd put the interesting flowers like roses or orchids or greenery. But since I'm just doing this base of hydrangea for you, I'm going to fill it in with hydrangea. And you can see now I need to turn it around and see if I'm even. If I have my dome shape is domey enough. And if not, I'll go back, clean some of these others, and place them in where I need it to look a little bit more balanced. And it gets trickier as you're done, because the flowers it's full. The foam is full. It's hard to get stems in. But I'm going to push these in a little bit to make sure that all my gaps are covered, and then take any brown leaves or brown petals I may have missed off. Here's one I need to push in a little bit. And again, as with all flower arrangements, we always tell you, when you think you're done, you step away and look at it from a distance and then see if everything is as even as you want to be. All right, so this is a nice massive amount of hydrangea that is ready to put maybe some beautiful Phalaenopsis orchids hanging down, or some amaranthus, or some other sort of hanging greens. You could also then put in some nice pretty white roses or peach colored roses, or something not too contrasty. If you're going to do something very contrasty, I would design that as you go. But if it's just a white, sort of white or very pale ivories that you're going to add to it, first certainly start with a big mound of hydrangea and then add your accents. Thanks for joining me for another class with Flower Duet.